Hello friends, my name is Shiba, working as Assistant Professor in BMS Engineering College, Bangalore. The topic for today's discussion is fundamental rights guaranteed under Indian Constitution. Fundamental rights are described in Part 3 of Indian Constitution. Fundamental rights are basic human rights that are given to every citizen without any discrimination. Next, let's look at the features of fundamental right. The first feature says it is integral part of the Constitution. Citizens can exercise their civil liberty because of the presence of fundamental right under the Indian Constitution. That is why fundamental rights are integral part of the Constitution. Second feature says it is positive and a negative right. When you're allowed to exercise the rights that are guaranteed under the fundamental right, it becomes a positive right. When there are restrictions placed on your fundamental right, it becomes a negative right. Justiciable right, which means if your fundamental rights are violated, you can approach the Supreme Court or the High Court to get back your fundamental right or remedy for your problems. Fourthly, it says reasonable restriction. Please remember, none of your fundamental rights are absolute right. All your fundamental rights have reasonable restriction. So restriction has to be reasonable and not unreasonable. Fifthly, it says suspension of rights. Sometimes during the time of emergency, some of our fundamental rights can be suspended by the government. Please remember the suspension is not permanent, it is only for temporary basis. Next it says fundamental rights can be amended. As society changes, we need to constantly update our constitutions. Amendment can be either deleting something that is outdated, including the new provision for the need of the society, or making modification in the existing provisions. Under the Indian Constitution, citizens are given 6 fundamental rights. Let's look at each rights. First right is called right to equality. It starts with Article 14 to 18. Second one is right to freedom. It starts with Article 19 to 22. Third is right against exploitation, Article 23 and 24. Fourth, right to freedom of religion, Article 25 to 28. Fifth, cultural and educational rights, Article 29 and 30. Sixth, right to constitutional remedies, Article 32. Now let's look at a first fundamental right, which is called right to equality. Article 14 says equality before law and equal protection of law, which means no person is above law and all are treated equally before law. Every individual have equal access to court. Article 15 says prohibition of discrimination based on religion, race, caste, place of birth. Article 16 says equal opportunity in public employment. Public employment means it is applicable only in government sector and not in private sector. The only basis for any person to get employed in public sector is merit, and he cannot be discriminated on any of the grounds. Article 17 talks about abolition of untouchability, which is an evil practice which was there in our country because of caste system. Article 18 says abolition of titles. We are prohibited from getting titles from other countries. However, Indian Constitution recognizes 2 forms of titles. One is for military and the other one is for academic distinction. All foreign title which creates distinction in social status among people have been abolished by Article 18. Second fundamental right is right to freedom. It starts with Article 19 to 22. Article 19 itself has 6 rights. First one is freedom of speech and expression, freedom of assembly, freedom to form association, freedom to movement, freedom to reside and settlement, freedom to profession, occupation and trade or business. Article 20 deals with protection and respect of conviction for offences. Article 20 assures protection against excessive punishment to any person who is alleged to have committed an offence. No person can be punished except for violation of law. Article 21 deals with protection of life and personal liberty. Article 21 covers many rights. For example, A new amendment was included under Article 21 capital A, which says free and compulsory education till the age of 14 years. It talks about right to environment and right to life. It deals with right to privacy and so on. Article 22 talks about protection against arrest and prevention and detention in certain cases. Now, when a person is arrested also, he can exercise certain rights. For example, he is supposed to be told on what grounds he is arrested. He is supposed to be taken to the jurisdictional police station. They have to file first information report. He can be kept in jail for 24 hours. If you have to extend his custody beyond 24 hours, magistrate permission is necessary. And he should be allowed to contact his legal representative for legal help. Next is third fundamental right, right against exploitation under Article 23 and 24. Article 23 says prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Traffic in human being means sale and purchase of human beings as goods and commodities for immoral purpose such as slavery, prostitution, etc. This kind of activity is prohibited under Article 23. Article 24 says prohibition of employment of children in factories. A child who is below the age of 14 years is prohibited from working in any factory. A fourth fundamental right is right to freedom of religion. Now here it starts from Article 25 to 28. Article 25 says freedom of conscience, freedom to profess, practice and propagation of religion. Article 26 is a collective right, freedom to manage religious affairs. Article 27 says freedom as to payment of taxes for promotion of any particular religion. In India, our constitution gives importance to secularism. We do not give any special preference to a particular religion. Article 28 says freedom as to attend at religious instruction or religious ceremonies in certain educational institutions. Next is fifth fundamental right, which talks about cultural and educational rights under Article 29 and 30. Article 29 says protection of language, script and culture of citizens. Article 30 says right of minorities to establish and administer educational institutions. This article gives importance of protection to minorities. Sixth fundamental right is right to constitutional remedies. Constitutional remedies in the sense, if you have any problem in exercising your fundamental right, the solution is in Article 32. If your fundamental rights are violated, you can move the Supreme Court or the High Court for the enforcement of your fundamental right. The petition that you have to file is called as writ petition. There are 5 kinds of writ petition that are mentioned under Article 32. First one is habeas corpus, second one is mandamus, third one is certiorari, fourth one is prohibitio, and last one is quo warranto. These writs play an important role in protecting the rights of individuals against encroachment by the legislature, the executive, and the other agency. Please pause for a few minutes and recollect the fundamental rights that we have gone through today in this explanation. Thank you for listening.